reporting that Israeli jets struck a building in southern Syria close to Damascus this morning. The assassination of a senior Iranian general in Damascus last month triggered an unprecedented missile attack from Tehran and concerns of a wider conflict. The US back then warned Israel not to respond, you'll remember. Well, for more on that, we're joined by Joel Rayburn, director of the American Center for Levant Studies and a former US Special Envoy for Syria. Good to see you, Joel. Thank you very much for being with us. And there had been reports recently that Iran was pulling resources out of Syria because of the threat from Israel. Does it look, in your view, as though that is happening?
I never take those things. I always take those kinds of reports with a grain of salt because I think the Iranian regime is committed to maintaining a strategic posture in Syria. They may make some tactical withdrawals to try to reposition some of their assets, some of their personnel, especially after the strike that took out the senior IRGC generals a few weeks ago. It makes sense entirely that the Iranians would pull some of their more senior people out or move them to safer locations, more distant locations. But they're not going to see that strategic depth in Syria. They've worked too hard over too many years to establish it, to just back away from it.
Your view on the decision by the Biden administration to cut or pause military aid to Israel, will that have an impact on Israel's ability to fight Hezbollah? And what are the strategic implications for the United States in this part of the world?
I think it's catastrophic for the United States. I think this is it's the encapsulation, it's the culmination of more than 3 years of an absolutely wrong-headed, misguided, failed foreign policy across the board. It's not just with respect to this conflict that the Iranian regime began and has been waging against Israel and the United States and other U.S. allies in the region. It also extends to, I think, the Biden administration's mistakes concerning Ukraine in 2022, the absolutely insane abandonment of Kabul. And chickens are sort of coming home to roost on the entire policy. I'm not surprised at the threat of an arms embargo from President Biden, but it makes absolutely no sense in the U.S. interest. And it's creating it's not going to stand in terms of the relationship between the administration and Congress. Congress is not going to go along with such an arms embargo.
Do you see Congress taking some steps to overturn this move? Can that happen?
I think that would come if it's put to the test. If it's really put to the test, especially with respect to if there's an escalation, a confrontation between Israel and Hezbollah, I think Congress would intervene if the Biden administration tried to forestall some sort of Israeli action there. However, in the meantime, it's creating absolutely unnecessary friction. It's shooting the United States' interests and our allies in the foot. All it's doing is essentially signaling to the Iranian regime that the United States doesn't fully have the back of Israel as Israel tries to reestablish deterrence. In the United States, obviously, the Biden administration has made a mistake in not restoring deterrence on our own. It's baffling to people like me that the American president doesn't every day, every hour, make an issue of the fact that Hamas killed more than 30 Americans on October 7th and still is holding 5 or more Americans hostage today.
And what about Iran's calculations here? Because we did see numerous attacks, didn't we, on US troops in Iraq, in Syria, and in Jordan as well, by Iranian-backed militia. Do you think that those militia might be emboldened now that those attacks had quietened down a bit of late? Do you think we might see a resurgence there?
Well, they'll pull out that leverage whenever they need it. The Iranian regime will, because I think the Iranian regime in its confrontation with the United States has been happening for the last several months. I think the Iranian regime has calculated that they've deterred the United States. They've deterred the United States on the Iraq front, the Syria front, and also on the Red Sea front. I think they believe that they've got the edge there, that they can act against our interests, they can attack our people, even kill our people as they did at Tower 22 in Jordan, and with no U.S. response on the Iranians directly. That it'll always be the Iranian regime, I think, still is in the mode of thinking that concerning the United States, they can always hit us with the sock puppet, and that we'll only ever hit the sock puppet back, and that means that we're deterred, not them. So I think that's a very dangerous factor. when we think about what the Iranian thinking about this Israel-Hezbollah potential confrontation in the north. Yes, it's a dangerous situation. The United States should be trying to reestablish deterrence so that the Iranian regime and Hezbollah will back away. And so far, that's not happening.
All right, Joel Rayburn, thank you very much indeed.